We here at the Kuncan Dastner channel would like to apologize formally to Mr. Jon Favreau. This video might come across as like a heated attack, and that's not how we meant it at all. This was not a threat. This should not be taken legally as a threat. There's no credibility to this being a threat. What else did my lawyer tell me to say? Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You might be able to tell that there's going to be two different tones to this video, and that's because this is a topic that I both find interesting and want to explore, and also has been haunting me since 2019. This motherfucker is why I can't sleep at night. Movie cameos. When you're able to sneak an artist or creative related to the source material in as a little Easter egg cameo. It sounds pretty simplistic, but that's because it is. When you boil it down, it's really just a nice and fun thing for them to do. When done right, it's a very cool way to immortalize the creator in the world that they've made. However, there are those in this industry who are prone to inflated egos, and sometimes their urge to push themselves into the spotlight will lead to a very jarring cameo. And above all others, there is one example that just irritates me to the ends of the earth. This topic, sometimes it's gonna bring something out of me. But you know what? Maybe expressing some frustration will help me, and I've heard that people really enjoy YouTube videos about someone ranting about a niche topic. I hope this goes away. We should start with movie cameos in general, because that is kind of a wide range that I'm casting, and I do want to be specific about directors. Because you will see cameos that are nice for specific fans, like Stephen Colbert really liked The Lord of the Rings, so they snuck him into The Hobbit as a side character. And there are also cameos for like niche inside jokes. In one of the Spider-Man movies, Michael Keaton is playing the Vulture, and at one point he covers the moon kind of like Batman, which is another one of his roles. Both of those types are quick, non-distracting cameos that are meant to be fun, and they don't take away from the story. This isn't that. We're talking about directors. And hey, directors have a hard, important job on set. They deserve all of that credit. But power trips, and sometimes you'll get an ego that just feels the need to gift themselves some kind of present. At the very beginning of the scale, you have the guy who clearly had the most fun with it, Alfred Hitchcock. He's usually in the backgrounds of crowds and appears for only a few seconds. It also served as like a signature on each movie, which is meaningful to see. Then we move up the scale a bit to Stan Lee. Some of them are brief and harmless and don't take up too much time. But this is where things start to get iffy. The cameos will usually give him a speaking line, and it's often a joke, and everyone in the theater is expected to clap and laugh, but not all jokes land, and some are corny, and some just take you right out of the movie. All of these are going to be specific to each cameo, but especially for Stan Lee, it's a broad range of good to bad, which kind of puts him here on my scale. A scale that means absolutely nothing. Speaking of which, let's move up that scale a little bit to M. Night Shyamalan. Sometimes he'll make a movie that'll haunt you, and then he'll make a movie just for himself to laugh at, and you don't always know what to expect. His cameos started as simplistic background appearances, but over the years he's turned his characters into ones with dialogue that interact with the lead roles directly. I can see how it's starting to get a little overindulgent. Honorary mention, Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, if there's a character who needs to drink alcohol from a woman's foot or say the N-word 12 times in one sentence, he volunteers himself immediately. I hate that guy so much. So, yeah. Streaming TV has been a fun piñata for the first couple of years, but now it's starting to show some cracks and we're learning that the piñata is full of bullshit. What was originally a creative avenue to tell side stories about side characters without bogging down the overall franchise narrative has turned into not that. Oftentimes you'll need to watch one show to understand the details of another show, which just feels like a trap. And then the CGI and the writing can feel sometimes rushed, and that's usually because it is. And you might think, well, if they know the quality's bad, they're just going to stop doing it that way, right? And no. No, they're evil. That's not what they want to do. My point is, the earliest Disney Plus stories felt normal paced and natural and almost like good television. And now, it's just the same franchise soup in a different flavor. And that's important. You'll need to remember this. All of these scales you're going to need to remember. And over here on the Star Wars franchise side of things, we're going straight to the top and talking about Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau is a Hollywood actor, producer, director, and writer, which makes him a quadruple threat of appearing in anything you watch. I don't like those odds. Jon helped produce Iron Man back in 2008, which led to the insane tyrannical death grip that the MCU has on cinema right now, and it paid him pretty handsomely. His importance in both the movies and the production shot all the way up to the top with it. He is kind of like the first investor in Iron Man. Oh, and you can see some of the wish fulfillment cracks starting to show. Like in the Spider-Boy movies, he makes his character be in a situationship with Marissa Tomei. And it's like, all right, sure. I mean, who wouldn't? But come on. There's also Chef, which is a solid movie, but it is just a fantasy playground for Jon. He plays the everyman who rises up against the restaurant industry and makes his own food truck, and he sells his own food because it's authentic. And his girlfriend is Scarlett Johansson, and his ex-wife is Sofia Vergara. I'm not buying that shit. I believe from this we can summarize that his characters sometimes are given a special privilege. But here we go. This is when we finally get to the perfect cameo that wasn't. It happened, and then it ended. And now, 2 years later, he's annoyingly trying to reopen that fantasy. Paz Vizsla. I know that it sounds crazy that I'm going this rant mode on what seems to be a little blue guy. So, in order to flesh out my points, I rewatched the entire show with all of his scenes in it, in order to have a better encapsulated idea of how I can tell you that it's bad, it's stupid. And I'm not gonna lie, staring at CGI blobs for multiple hours over multiple days and just looking into the eyes of Paz, it stressed me out to no end. But thankfully, I had something to indulge in that would help me relieve some of that stress. Ad break. This video is sponsored by Bright Cellars. Bright Cellars offered to find my perfect wine preferences just by me taking a test, and it was the best test I've taken since college. Some nights I enjoy releasing the hypertension anxiety demon in my brain with a glass of wine, but all I've known before are the cheap ones with vague labels. Bright Cellars was spoiling me out here by giving me choices, and it was much more preferable to skip the expectations of a sophisticated palate. After learning the tastes I like, I was sent a tidy and well-wrapped present, my box of suggested wines, complete with education cards to explain why it was my match made in heaven. I tried just a sip to see the quality for myself, and those Bright Cellars people had figured me out perfectly. That wine was good. The people at Bright Cellars knew how to combine my tastes better than I did myself. Everyone in the house turned out to be a big fan of Bright Cellars, whether it be for the wine or for the box.
This is fruity, it's delightful, it's giving summer, it's giving pop, it's giving
And if you're of age and could use a sip of personalized relaxation, the deal's about to get even sweeter. Hop over to their site and take that fun quiz. Use my QR code or use the link in my description and you'll get hand-picked wines delivered straight to you and ready to help you relax.
Nope. That is technically holding it by the stem, I guess.
Again, the link with that sweet, sweet deal will be in my description. Thank you, Bright Sellers, for sponsoring this video. Here's the kicker. The show that Jon is operating on here is The Mandalorian. It's Star Wars. You might have heard of it. Pedro Pascal, Bounty Hunter, Baby Yogurt. You probably know about it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be reviewing the show as a whole. But if I were to, I would give it a watch and/or instead out of 10. The first season is my favorite. The first half of the first season is my favorite. And the rest is just blurry action. So Jon is either directing, producing, or writing a lot of these episodes, and he's been vocal about loving this franchise since he was a kid, so it makes sense that he's going to put himself into the world in one episode. Fine. And if you're looking at the timeline of the overall franchise, his cameo for the first half of it is good. In the entirety of the first season, he's only in one episode, and he's completely absent for the second. So, over the show's lifespan, he's in one contained little episode. That's a cameo. Perfect. You did it. And though he's definitely prominent in that episode, he's not the main focus. So, let's get into my notes during my rewatch of how it all went down. Wow, could this be any more gray? He definitely gives himself the heroic moment of where he's the one to show up and save the main character, even though there's no reason for him to do so, because the main character didn't say anything to inspire him. He just kind of decides, okay, I'll be a hero. It's just a regular gunfight that he's not involved in, and then all of a sudden he's like, no, we're showing up. And then the main character's like, you're gonna have to hide again. You're gonna have to take everybody and hide. And he goes, this is the way. And then he has himself show up at the end with a jetpack. I don't know, to look cool, I guess. He gives him a salute, but even in story, that doesn't make sense. Wouldn't he still be down shooting people? What's with the salute? So in summary, his screen time is high, but it's still a contained cameo, and it makes sense that a guy who's loved this franchise for years would make himself hero for the day. If you've ever planned on trying out this show, watch the first 3 episodes of season 1, and then exit. Tell yourself it was a short story, wrap it up, consider it done, watch Andor, and then delete Disney Plus, and, watch your next show on the 7 Seas. Season 2, he's not in it. For the entirety of the second season, Jon Favreau's character makes no appearance. It's implied that he and his old war buddies are trying to find somewhere to hide, so I guess they did a good job, because he has no impact on the plot whatsoever. But Jon is still in charge of the show, and season 2 had the main character going through kind of a crisis of cult, and all of these side characters start showing up, and it becomes a little bit too much of a fan service-y kind of buffet. But revisit that timeline, I can't stress enough, until now it's been perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with his cameo. And now let's get into what's wrong, because he makes it wrong. So now we have to cross over the halfway mark and into the ridiculous zone. And this is where my anger triples and Paz Vizsla is born. This unnecessary spinoff, already being critiqued for its lazy writing, poor pacing, and undercutting of a fan-favorite character, also commits the crime of not only bringing Jon's character back, but also, for some reason, making him really vital to the story. Okay, this is unrelated to Jon, and I know it's not his fault, but this f***ing toy is so hard to, I can't get his hands to hold the gun. And that's no one's fault. I can't be mad at Jon for this part, but I can't escape everything about this guy is pissing me the hell off. So suddenly in the middle of the Boba Fett show, right, we start following Pedro's character, and he's got this dark sword, and he's like, whoa! And, well, he's not like that. When Paz shows up in this episode, he's still antagonistic, and he still butts heads with the main character, this time literally. And it's like, alright, did he not grow at all since that first cameo? Has he not changed? Because characters are supposed to change over time. Basically, the sword has so much lore behind it that, like, I can't even, like, start to explain it and get it done within an hour. The point is, it's a weapon that can only be won through battle, right? So you gotta beat the guy who has it. That's the code. And so Pedro Pascal shows up and he's like, hey, what's with this weird weapon? And all of a sudden, Paz Vizsla's like, hey, my family forged that. And remember, this is the first time this character has showed up since the very simplistic cameo in the beginning where Jon Favreau, like, didn't even name him. He played an unnamed infantry, soldier. But now all of a sudden, he's Paz Vizsla. And the Vizslas are apparently super important. I don't know. I like Star Wars. I don't like Star Wars that much. I'm not gonna know these references.
Maybe the Darksaber belongs in someone else's hands. It was forged by my ancestor, founder of House Vizsla. And now I will win it from you.
And so he challenges the main character to the main fight, and this whole time, like, they start fighting over this religious weapon, and it's like, I wonder what Boba Fett's doing. Like, wasn't that why we were supposed to watch this show in the first place? Anyway, he challenges him to this is what makes me mad. They challenge each other to a death fight, and of course, Pedro Pascal's character, the main character, is gonna win the to the death fight. And so he's about to end Paz right now for even, like, daring to attempt to take the sword. And then he doesn't. This lady's just like, stop, the fight is over. I can't remember if she's British or not. I might have just done that.
It is done.
So Jon Favreau brought himself back in a show that he was not his... So Jon Favreau brought himself back in a show where his narrative that he's barely in is not present in order to fight over one of the most important Star Wars weapons in history. He gives himself a name, he gives himself a backstory, and then in a to-the-death fight, he does not die. He's literally fighting his own main character. Like, he's fighting, like, in a way, he's fighting against the series he's making. If I wanted to make this, like, intellectual at all, I would read into that. I couldn't be bothered. So he's definitely, like, getting us as an audience ready for, like, more of him. He's like, I hope y'all like this Paz guy, because he's back, and he's Vizsla than ever. It just feels so self-congratulatory, and being like, I get to play the member of a clan who forged this unique weapon, who, like, I'm suddenly the descendant of... And it's just like, Jon, the cameo at the beginning of season 1 was fine. Again, none of this should be happening right now. The show is about the green one, not the blue one or the silver one. This is all exposition for the little super sword that isn't important in this show, but will be in the next one. So what's going on here, Jon? He went from one cameo, where he was unnamed and unimportant, to all of a sudden being in a spin-off show, spin-off episode, where his character is the one we learn the most new things about. But at least he, again, only did that for one episode of the show. Hey, look, it's season 3. This is when things get nuts. You can see in almost every episode how the writing bends to make this character important when he really shouldn't at all be bending this way. Ow! So all of a sudden in season 3, before the main character even has a chance to show up, this big crocodile starts attacking the cult. And, of course, Paz, Jon Favreau, is present, and he's ready to save the foundlings, save the young ones.
Young ones, to the cage! Get back! Get back!
I wonder, I think it's coming up soon, but, like, there's a point where, like, one of them, where he literally flies in, and, like, hip checks a kid out of the way of the crocodile. Hold on, is that here?
Get down!
So, like, this youngling, who you find out is his son, right? Like, he goes in and he, like, he just completely side checks. And he's, like, totally ready to die in front of this thing. And then the main character shows up. And it's like, if our main character just works a little bit harder, Paz Vizsla would have died, like, a few times. Yep, there he is. Everyone clap. Everyone clap. He doesn't show up again until episode 4, which has a focus on the kids of the cult, like, learning how to fight. And so the Pedro Pascal's kid, the yellow, the little green guy, is learning how to become, like, a member of the cult. And he's fighting against this little, like, snot-nosed kid, who you do find out is Paz Vizsla's son. But, like, it's meant to be a big reveal. But anyway, Paz is watching over this group fight, as if he's, like, a mentor to all of them. And you find out later it's because he has a personal, like, connection to this fight, because that's his son. But there's no reason for us to even remotely connect with that. Wow, I think it's like 2 planes at the same time. Whoa, what is happening? His character is so cold to his son until the kid gets captured by the bird. I think I have footage of that. And then, right, they go on this big mission to save the kid. And then, just out of nowhere, he blurts, "He's my son!" And, like, suddenly it's like, oh, now we get it. But it's just lazy writing, as if Jon Favreau just wanted to, like, elevate his character in that moment by saying, like, oh, suddenly this character is more three-dimensional than we thought. It just makes the rest of his appearances look bad. Blah, 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 blah. Another guy who's friends with the director shows up, making a cameo. But, oh, and there's Paz. He says, like, "Get out of here, blue boy," as if he's, like, intimidating to the, I guess, the police. Shit, wait, that's cool. He's mouthing off the government. Okay. I hate him, but Paz Vizsla says ACAB. Basically, they're like, oh, like, your friends are in trouble, and the whole group has to decide if they're going to go help or not. And since Paz is, like, the boss of the whole group, he's the one who really gets to decide if they help or not. Okay, then they do this thing where, like, they present each other's then they do this, like, trial thing where they present their arguments, and Pedro Pascal's character is like, hey, we should probably help these guys. They might be nice to us in return. And then Paz Vizsla stands up and he's like, I don't know if I agree with you. He's like, why should we risk our lives? And he's making up a lot of really good points as to why they should not help him. Did it end already? Anyway, he's bringing up a ton of really good points. And then middle of the speech, he fucking flips it and reverses it. And it's like,
Did not give up on my child's life, even when the rest of us did.
And then, of course, they go to the people. They take it back from the pirates. And Paz gets shot with a cannon that previously was throwing people around. He gets hit on the shoulder with it. He's fine. Because, you know, plot armor can really add on to Jon Favreau's will to survive. He's the only member of the group of Mandalorians who was given a voice. And the fact that Jon Favreau volunteered himself to be that voice. It's like, this is my story. By God, I'm gonna be the one to make the important decisions in the story. Side note, I was ready to forgive the entire extended cameo bit because of this part. He and this other hothead character are very clearly sizing each other up, and you can feel the tension building of them eventually start to fight. And just before it breaks, they're here playing a board game. I thought that was hilarious. I think that's a lazy trope, and to see it played out this way, I laughed. I really did. And then I stopped laughing because then it went back to the trope and fulfilled it. The only good moment that comes out of any of this is when Baby Yogurt in his Gundam suit is hitting a low button and he stops the fight, and Jon's character isn't even responsible for that. Paz Vizsla death scene. Spoilers. So right, all the Mandalorians are trapped and they're all going to die. So, of course, while the rest of the group escapes, it is Paz Vizsla's character who decides to take on the entire opposing army and sacrifice himself to save everybody.
We're not leaving you behind!
Go!
Okay, everyone knows Star Wars is trope city. There's gonna be a lot of dumb tropes. But here, she's like, you have to come with us. And then he punches the door and he's like, I am not coming with. I'm staying. It could have been a very short sacrifice, but he just keeps going. His gun overheats. And then all of a sudden he has the strength of a bear because he starts throwing people around.
Please welcome to the stage, Jon Favreau!
And it takes 3 new enemies who we have not seen before, who have been hinted at, to take him down. It takes 3 of them. And he does the thing where he does the thing where the episode ends on his death. That's the moment we're supposed to be left with after this episode. And it's that character, even if it wasn't Jon Favreau, that character didn't deserve it. The penultimate episode for this whole season gives him 3 full minutes at the end to have this brilliant, guns blazing sacrifice. For why? Why? If you are someone like me who is always trying to put an optimistic perspective squeezed onto the world, it can become a little detached from reality, from your real, authentic emotions, because you're trying too hard to make everything seem good. And whenever I spend overtime trying to make things optimistic is when I burn out. That's when I don't text people back. It's where I don't go outside. It's the classic depression burnout. And if you've ever experienced something like it, I'm sure it was similar to mine. I don't have an official answer to this or a go-to solution. What I do have is a Paz. And I think a good temporary coping mechanism is for you to get your own Paz. Maybe you already even have your Paz, but if not, they're not hard to find. You just have to look around and not take things too seriously. Is Jon Favreau's Star Wars character really making me this mad? 5% of this. But every day, all the time, I am projecting this optimistic view onto things, and sometimes, to balance that out, I can project an overly negative, spiteful one too. Nobody is getting hurt over me venting about Paz Vizsla, unless Jon is watching this video. Hey, Jon. And so then fuming about this fictional character is just annoying at the least, and therapeutic at the most. So just pick something that mildly annoys you. It could be a video game. It could be another movie character. It could be a specific bird that you hear cawing every morning. It can be a brand of car. It can be the color mauve. Anything. And play around with that mild annoyance. Because again, it's almost like exercising a muscle. Anger is an emotion that we should not repress, and we should find healthy ways to exhaust it. And I don't know if this one is healthy, but why not do it as a bit on something small? Find your Paz and then just vent about it openly to anyone, even if it's just to an empty room. Oh God, that's what I'm doing. Experiencing the full range of human emotions is important, and if you haven't done it in a while, maybe expressing all of that anger on something small will help you. Come to think of it, I think mine just ran out because he's dead. I don't think he's going to come up a lot more in the future. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of opportunities for me to talk about him, so I guess I gotta find my new Paz. Okay. It is kind of hard to think of one if you don't have one off the top of your head. I will admit that. I hate songs that fade out. Why do it that way? Just find a note to end on. There's no benefit to fading out, it just admits that you don't know how to end your song. I feel another video essay coming. Hi everyone, it is VoiceOver Duncan for the outro today, because the lovely people over at Bright Sellers expected this video yesterday, and I took too long editing, so, you know, bit of a rush. But I wanted to say thank you for giving me your time, especially because this video was about a random-ass Star Wars character, and you did not need to do that, absolutely at all, but you did, and I appreciate that. Next video will be less niche. We're gonna go back to commentary, but, you know, I kind of pulled it together at the end, right? With the whole, like, find your own paths thing. Like, it makes kind of sense. Oh my god, Ailey's looking at me funny. Anyway, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay safe this week. I love you lots, and goodbye.